Good morning. This is Daily Hebrew Declarations with Daniel Jedediah Cook, and I'm reading the declaration for today, March the 19th, 2021. The three Hebrew letters we're honoring today are Samech, Kuf, and Shin. Along with those three living letters, we're also honoring the spirit of understanding, the spirit of counsel, and the spirit of might. The declaration today reads this: the path to the treasures of the day, raising us up to be set apart to be holy, laying hold of the things of Yahweh and not letting go. Today's declaration has really had me introspecting a lot, or really looking on the inside of myself, particularly because this place of talking about the path to the treasures of the day. The living letter Samech really speaks about the place of supernatural support. One of its literal meanings is supernatural support. But one of the other meanings that it talks about is that of a thorn. And you see, whenever I think about it from this perspective, I think about it from the perspective of not only Paul, and there's a very, very distinctive story that I'll tell you guys in just a minute about Paul, but I also think about the crown of thorns that was placed on Yeshua's head. In addition to that, there's one other place where thorns are used, and that was when Hosea had married Gomer. Gomer was a prostitute, and there was a very distinctive story, a very unique story of how Hosea and what Yahweh was wanting to do with Gomer, and what Yahweh was wanting to show Gomer about herself and who she is and who she was. But let's begin talking about Paul first, because you see, Paul had just left the city and had just stoned Stephen. And he sat there and watched this beautiful expression, even though he was the one that was set the crowd against Stephen to stone him. He saw this beautiful exchange as Stephen cried out for Father to forgive them for not knowing what they're doing, and yet him transitioning into the great cloud of witnesses at the same time. It marked Paul. It changed him forever. And as he was heading down the road to Damascus, he was I'm sure meditating on the things that had just happened, because he was blown away by them. Paul was a devout Jew, and he loved the things of the law, and he was standing firmly on that place of the law. But he saw something in Stephen that affected him. That path led him to a treasure. Even though there was seemed like a negative perspective there was a path to a treasure. And see, on the road to Damascus, suddenly this light shone down on Paul, and it blinded him. But he heard a voice that was crying out of the midst of that light, and it said, "Paul, Paul, why are you kicking against the goads? Why are you kicking against the thorns?" You see, I began to see that there was a hedge of thorns wrapped around Paul as well. That as he was going through this, because of his really the place of being righteous as a part of the law, his heart was towards the Father. His heart, was really crying out to understand, but his understanding was more based on the understanding of the law. And really, who and what was the law pointing towards? It was pointing towards Yeshua. And he was showing him Yeshua and showing him this place of who Yeshua is. The other crown of thorns being placed on Yeshua's head was the same crown of thorns that was wrapped around Paul, and he was kicking against those goads. You see, if you think about it from that perspective, he was already in the mind of Christ. Even though he had just got done doing something horrible, he was in the mind of Christ. Yahweh had placed him inside of his mind, and Paul became an intent of Yahweh's heart, because he saw the intent of Paul's heart. And so you see, in this place, I also think about Gomer. Gomer was Hosea's wife, and she was a prostitute. And She wanted to go back to her lovers, even though she had married Hosea. She wanted to go back to her lovers because it was there that she had her bread, her wine, her oil, and her jewels. All the wealth that she had came from her lovers, or at least so she thought. But Yahweh said, I'm going to wrap her round about with a hedge of thorns and protection, and I'm going to set her apart, and I'm going to set her out into the desert where she can't find her lovers, where her lovers can't get to her. You see, that hedge of protection protects both ways, both from the inside trying to get out and from the outside trying to get back in. And it's protection all the way around, above, below, and beneath. I almost see it as a great big ball of thorns, if you will, and her living inside of it. And Yahweh said, this is the reason why I'm going to do this. I'm going to set her aside and I'm going to wrap these hedge of thorns around her. Why? So I can show her that I was the one who gave her the bread, the oil, the wine, and the gold. I was the one. I'm going to woo her back to the place where her heart begins to cry out, Father, I had it better with my husband. I had it better back when I was connected with my husband than I had any other time. And I want to go back there. You see, this is what we're talking about today. The path to the treasures, these understandings of who really provides us these things. We've talked a lot about this place of the treasury rooms of heaven and how Yahweh has sat me in the center of the treasury rooms of heaven. And I'm sitting in this chair burning. This fire is on not only the inside of me, but on the outside of me. And I'm beginning to see all of the things that Yahweh has promised me and all the things that he has set aside. And then he tells me on top of that, that this treasury room is my treasury room. It's not the whole treasury rooms of heaven. No, each one of us have our own treasury rooms and we operate from that place. He was setting me apart to be holy. He was setting me apart so that his Shekinah glory, her Shekinah, as we like to say it here in the U.S., his Shekinah glory was burning inside of us to where all those that were around us could see the light of Yahweh. But not only that, we could see even further into the treasury rooms of heaven. And then he placed a door of shalom above my head. And he asked me to rise up through that door of shalom. And from that vantage point, I could even see further inside of the treasury rooms of heaven. Why? Because it was a place of hiddenness. It was a place of quietness. It was a place of being set apart to be holy. You see, one of our groups and several meetings that I've had, I've used this encounter, and I've brought others with me into the place of this encounter. And the reason for that, because I began to realize that this is a place that all of us can be a part of. You see, one of the things that when Yahweh first took me into the secret place that he began to show me and tell me was that I never had to leave there. I used to struggle with the place of, well, if I'm busy and I've got this going on, I got that going on, that I seem to forget Yahweh. But when Yahweh told me that I didn't have to leave that place, and that place was inside of me, and that everywhere that I went, he was with me, and everywhere he went, I was with him. From that place of being inside of the secret place, suddenly that finally made sense to me. And I realized that I could operate and move in that place of being always with him. But I hear so many people struggle in this place of understanding, well, what do I do during the day where I'm working and that sort of thing? Well, as I've been taking folks up into this place where I've been, and as I went up into this place, I began to see peace as something that was tangible. I began to see peace as something that I could grab a hold of. And so what I did was I grabbed a hold of him first, and then all those that have come with me, I've asked, grab a hold of peace and don't let go. Because his joy is found in this transition, this movement of this peace and operating from this peace. The joy of the Lord is my strength. His peace is my foundation. This place of understanding of being in him and completely protected by him, by his hedge of protection, even though in that place I'm not even anywhere near the thorns because I'm in the very center of his heart. But I know that those thorns are there protecting me. It's like the palms of his hands that are covering round about me as I'm placed in the center of the palms of his hands. And he looks at me and he says, "Behold, my son, in whom I am well pleased."